Hey guys, welcome, good morning. I know it's early, so I appreciate you all being here. So we're going to actually do this in two parts. We're going to do the first part, which is going to be about 45 minutes with 5 minutes for questions at the end. And at the end of part one, there is going to be a quiz. You can take that to get your certification. But what we're going to do today is actually go over everything that you need to install Chargent, get it set up in your Salesforce org, get a payment gateway set up, and actually the basics on being able to go from installation to running transactions. So the goal today is to give you all of that information, allow you guys to go back to your companies and just be rock stars. So here's what we're going to actually cover today. We're going to go through installation using the Package Installation Manager. It's called a PIM. We refer to it as the PIM, so you may hear me go back and forth. And that's going to be where to go to upgrade or to install your Chargent. We're going to go into managing licenses, which orgs require licenses, which ones don't, and we're going to cover that and how to actually add users licenses. We're going to go into Chargent for Lightning. There's several things that are happening with Lightning. First of all, Salesforce is pushing more and more people to use Lightning over Classic. So we want to actually get you guys set up to use Lightning and make sure that you're on the right version of Chargent. Make sure that you have Salesforce set up to do it. So we're going to cover that. And then feature activation key. You probably have already requested that, and I don't know how many people. Does everybody have a feature activation key? Cool. So we'll just cover that really briefly. And then setting up a payment gateway, we're going to use Authorizenet. We're going to go through the steps to create your gateway with Authorizenet and get that set up, and then the installation and setup in Salesforce for your payment gateway. Chargent Anywhere is something that we came out with over a year ago. We found a necessity to have Chargent installed on various objects, whether it's standard objects in Salesforce or custom objects. And we're going to go through the steps of setting that up. And then finally, after we are processing transactions, we're going to go through the transaction records, what you're going to see, which fields are going to populate on the transaction record. So with that, let's just jump right in. There's a few things that we all had to do in advance. We installed Chargent using the PIM. So if you if there's anybody here who doesn't have it already installed, just raise your hand. Somebody can go around and help you guys get that set up. Feature activation key, because it does take a little while, so we did request you guys to request that activation key in advance. Salesforce MyDomain. MyDomain is a necessity with Salesforce if you want to view the Chargent orders buttons and the charge button, the authorize button, Chargent Anywhere. Salesforce, when it went to Lightning, it kind of got rid of the JavaScript buttons. And what they replaced it with was Salesforce components. So in order to see those components, you have to have MyDomain set up, and there's a waiting period between registering your MyDomain and then actually deploying it. So you may have to go back in under MyDomain and just deploy it to actually see those objects or those components. And then finally, payment request, because it is a separate setup procedure. I went ahead and I set that up in advance, and I'll go ahead and demo the payment requests later on. So the payment request feature, you can set that up. It usually takes about 45 minutes going step by step. We're here to help too. So just to talk a little bit about the Package Installation Manager, we've gone over several reiterations of our app over the years. We were one of the first out of the first 200 in Salesforce App Exchange. So we've had version over version over version over version. And what we've done now is we've simplified it. You may see an installation or upgrade button within App Exchange or somewhere else. What we've done is we've actually created the PIM, and it's always going to be on our website. And what it's always designed to do is give you the most current version of Chargent that we want you to use. So we always want to go to our installation page on our website to install that, upgrade it. We've done our testing before we release the packages so that we know that it works. And anything that you get from our website, from the installation page, is actually going to be the most recent version. So you always want to go there. You always want to upgrade, install in the sandbox first, and then do testing in the sandbox. That way, you're testing with your customizations for your Salesforce org, and essentially, you're making sure that it's going to work for your instance before you push it over to production. So this is going to be a little bit of a hands-on, and it's going to be an interactive. There's going to be several parts of this where it's interactive. We're going to talk a little bit about managing the licenses. Essentially what happens is you're going to need a license for anybody who needs to view Chargent orders, Chargent objects, Chargent Anywhere. And because Chargent orders and Chargent Anywhere are two separate packages, if you give somebody a license for Chargent orders, you want to make sure that you give them a license also for Chargent Anywhere. Essentially, one can function without the other, but some people may need to see just Chargent orders and Chargent fields, but if you want them to process Chargent as a whole and use Chargent Anywhere, they're going to need both. Just to kind of go over this, and we're going to talk about it in theory, and then we're going to actually show you within Salesforce. To actually manage your licenses, what you want to do is you're going to go under Setup, so click on the little gear icon on the top right, choose Setup, and then you're going to search in the quick find for installed packages. And there you're going to see the Chargent Anywhere and Chargent Orders object, and right next to it it's going to show you Manage Licenses. It's pretty easy. You just click on Add Users, you select the users you want to add, and you add them that way. The one thing I want to mention is that if you're in a sandbox instance, it's not going to require licenses to be managed. So if you're set up with sandbox right now, you're not going to see these, only because we want you to be able to test Chargent thoroughly in a sandbox without actually assigning those licenses to your users. I'm going to go ahead and jump over so you guys can follow along here. First thing I want to kind of do is kind of go through the, show you where to go for the installation and the upgrading. If you do need to upgrade your org, you're going to come to our website and you're going to see under Help and Docs, Installation. This is where the PIM is always going to be, so if you want the Package Installation Manager or you want to upgrade, you can either install our 30-day trial or you can upgrade your Chargent instance here. So it's pretty easy. You always want to come here, and if you're setting up Chargent and you want to go through what we're going to cover today, we also have the Quick Start Guide here, which pretty much goes over a lot of the things that I'm covering. So let's jump into Salesforce here. If you're not already under the setup here, you can click on the gear icon here, choose Setup, and it'll take you right to the same page. In the quick find, we can go ahead and type installed packages. You should only have to type a few letters. And we're going to select installed packages here. So you're going to notice there's the Chargent Anywhere package. Down below is Chargent Orders. And it's going to tell you to the left, Manage Licenses. If we click on that, we can add a user. And we're going to select John Adams here. And all you have to do is click Add. Go back to Install Packages. And we can do the same thing for Chargent Orders. We can click on Add Users, add John Adams. And now John is going to be able to view both Chargent Orders and Chargent Anywhere. If anybody is getting stuck or anything like that, just raise your hand just to remind you guys. We have David, Don, John, and Brett walking around. They can help you guys out. But it's pretty easy to assign those licenses. So Charging with Lightning, what I did mention earlier is they got rid of the JavaScript buttons. They went over to Lightning components. And in order to view the Lightning components in Salesforce, in Lightning, you want to make sure that MyDomain is completely enabled. That's the step that a lot of people do miss in setting up MyDomain, is going from registration. They don't realize that there's a time period before they have to actually deploy it, before it's actually registered and before you can test it. So you want to make sure that you go back into MyDomain, and if you haven't enabled it, just go ahead and click that button to enable it. Chargent's been Lightning ready for well over a year now, at least probably a year and a half. And in version 5.0 is where you're going to find Chargent is Lightning ready. If you have anything prior to that, then you're going to want to go through the Package Installation Manager, upgrade your Chargent instance, and and upgrade. Just to kind of locate and show you in Salesforce real quick, if we go under MyDomain, you could see you want to make sure that the final step was added. If it's still at domain ready for testing, then you just want to click the enable button. And what this does is it allows Salesforce to make your Salesforce org a little bit more secure by allowing you to choose a domain that's going to be unique to your Salesforce. So for this here, I chose Chargent-demo, and that adds it to the domain for the login. Anybody got questions so far? I just want to make sure that I'm not going too fast here. Awesome. Just to talk a little bit about payment gateways a little bit. So you have a live gateway and you have test gateways. Some gateways, depending on which gateway you're using, Authorize.net, for example, they have two different logins. They have two different portals. So your credentials for your sandbox portal is going to be different from your credentials for your live instance. And you want to make sure when you're setting up your gateway in Salesforce that you're using the right credentials for the right package. For sandbox, you want to use your sandbox, obviously, and for the live, you want to use your live. Some gateways like Stripe, they have one instance where it's just a toggle switch, so you log into one portal, and then you just toggle it from sandbox to test, or from test to live, and that'll allow you to get the different credentials that you need. So we're going to walk through setting up Authorize.net in Sandbox. So if you haven't already gone there, you can go to developer.authorize.net, and we're going to go ahead and walk through getting you the API login ID, which is what you're going to need, and the transaction key. Here. So you should be on this page here? Yeah. Okay. So under Hello World, create a Sandbox account. And then it's another step to create the Sandbox account. And I don't think, if you're adding just various job levels, some of this I don't know if it's really required, but you could just enter anything. So you want to make sure, too, at the bottom, you click that you're not a robot and accept the Authorize.net Sandbox account agreement. And when you're done, just click Submit. So if you submit and everything's good, you should come to a page like this. So the two main things that you do want to look at is the API login key and the transaction key. And I'm going to go ahead and just copy these over into a notepad here, or you can just leave this screen open and copy it straight into the setup when we go through the setup in Salesforce. And I'm going to copy the transaction key as well. So I'm going to go over and jump in here and just show you guys how to set this up in Salesforce. If we're in Salesforce, we're going to click on the app launcher in the top left-hand side. And we're going to select the app, Chargent app. You guys should see the Chargent app in there too. And then you have Chargent settings on. So under Chargent settings, we have Chargent Setup Wizard. That's going to be your gateway wizard. And this is going to walk you through step by step on how to set that up in Salesforce. So let's go ahead and walk through setting up your payment gateway. Do you have a payment gateway? We're going to say yes. And then we're going to select Authorize.net from the dropdown. And here's where we're going to enter in those credentials from the Authorize.net account. We're going to go ahead and enter in the API login ID that we just got. So we can copy that from there, enter it in here. And then also the transaction key that we also got here. You'll also notice that there's two tabs here. One is for live and one is for test. So since we're doing the sandbox, we're going to use the test. And then if we click sign in, you should get a green box that shows that the credentials were successful. Okay, so when we click continue, it's going to ask us several things. Do you want to use tokenization? If you're not familiar with tokenization, tokenization is a string of letters and numbers and characters that you get back from your gateway. You send the credit card information, the credit card number, the expiration date, all of that to the gateway. So it's going to go to Authorize.net. What's going to happen is Authorize.net is going to send you back a random string of characters. It's always good to clear out the credit card information, the number, the expiration date, all that, because that token is now going to be able to be used in place of that credit card. And that token is only good for that gateway, for your Authorize.net account, and for that customer. So if you go to another gateway, it's not going to work. If you try to use it for a different customer, it's not going to work. It's only good for that specific customer, and you're not actually storing the credit card data in Salesforce, which kind of lowers the scope of your PCI compliance. So we're always going to recommend use tokenization. And then it's going to ask us the currency. With currency, you can select any of these currencies here. The biggest thing to remember is that you have to have that currency allowed by your gateway. So you have to actually have Authorize.net allow you to accept Australian dollars, Canadian dollars, things like that. If you don't have it set up with Authorize.net, it's not going to make a difference. What it's going to do is it's just going to convert it to US dollars. So we're going to go ahead and click continue. And then it asks about the payment console. Payment console is one of our premium features. It allows you to enter in credit card details, do a one-time payment, set up recurring payments, choose between electronic check or credit card. So we're going to go ahead and set that up. The next step is probably going to show you about setting up recurring billing and setting up a recurring schedule. I already have that set up, so I'm going to kind of walk you through it. Essentially, we do want to go ahead and set it up. Recurring billing and subscription billing. What it does is it takes a batch of records that actually need to be processed on a nightly basis, and it groups them together, sends them to Authorize.net to determine if they're gonna be processed. So you could set up a specific date, a day of the month that you want the billing to happen. You can set it up to take maybe 5 payments or be unending. So if you want to just do subscription billing and let it keep going until you choose to stop it, you can do that. So you're going to go ahead and select that. Yeah, just hit continue. And then it's going to ask you what time do you want the batch to run. We recommend 3 a.m. mostly because it's the middle of the night. When you come in the morning, all the batches are run, all the transactions that are supposed to process overnight are processed, and you can do your reconciliation and see which ones may have errored, declined. And then once you click continue from there, it should give you this page here, that everything is set up correctly. Is everybody there? Select payment methods that you accept. Is that where you guys are? You're going to have either credit card and ACH, which is bank account. So if you want to accept electronic check, or in some countries direct debit. And then below here, which credit cards are you going to accept? We can go ahead and click continue there. Set up your payment console. Which buttons do you want to be displayed on your payment console? Do you want to have the charge button displayed? Do you want to have create the token, or authorize? So I'm going to turn on the authorize button there, because a lot of times we want that on. If you just want to authorize a payment instead of charging it, just to see if the funds are available, authorization is always good too. And then if we click continue, now it gets into the recurring scheduled payments. We're going to go ahead and click yes. Chargent recommends that we run the batch at 3 a.m. local time. It asks if that works for you. If we click yes, if you click no, then you can schedule the batch for any time you want. And then we should have a congratulations, we're all set. So just to kind of recap what we did, we went through this Chargent Setup wizard. We entered in the credentials that we got from Authorize.net, tokenization, random string of characters, currency, that you selected the payment methods, and set up payment console and the recurring billing options. We're going to go ahead and set up Chargent Anywhere now. And just to kind of go over a little bit, you could set up Chargent Anywhere on any object. We're going to go ahead and we're going to set it up on the opportunities package. And a lot of people want it on the opportunities, but you can put it on cases, you can put it on custom objects, you can put it on any object that you want. So, but today we're just going to go ahead and we're going to put it on the opportunity. To do that, it's essentially you go to any opportunity in Salesforce. If it's a test account, you can find those by clicking the drop down and viewing all opportunities. They give you test opportunities from the get-go. And you can go to any opportunity, click on the gear icon, and select Edit Page. What you're going to see on the left-hand side is going to be components for Lightning, and then at the very bottom, custom components. All we have to do is drag that into the page. We're going to click Save. It's going to ask us to activate it, and then we activate it and we finish. It's also going to take you through configuration where you have to add the remote site, and you have to type understood, and then it completes it. And we're just going to jump right over there. So let's go ahead and locate an opportunity. So if we click on the Waffle app launcher and we go to our opportunities package here, if you have some already up there, otherwise you can click on the little drop down here and select all opportunities. And we're just you can click on any opportunity that you want. So I'm going to go ahead and just talk a little bit about setting up Chargent Anywhere on an opportunity. And in order to do that, we want to go ahead and add it to the page here. To get to the layout or edit the page, click on the gear icon, click Edit Page. And on the left-hand side here, you're going to see all of the Lightning components. You're going to need to scroll all the way to the very bottom. And you should see Chargent Anywhere under the custom managed components. And we can easily just drag it right into the page there. You're going to assign it to the org. You could do either desktop or phone or both. Click Next and then Save. So when we go back, it's actually going to give you a button to finish configuring it. Should look something like this. Is that what you got? So go ahead and just click Configure. It's going to ask you to set up the remote site. And then it tells you to type in understood, and you finish the configuration there. And it should be on your page layout like this. So just to kind of run through what Chargent Anywhere does, again, it allows you to send a payment request, which is an email that gets sent to a recipient. They open it up, they click on a secure link, and they can enter in their own credit card information. We're going to go ahead and demo that in just a second. The payment console allows you to enter in the credit card information, set up recurring billing, or take a one-time payment. And then it also has add cash or add check. These buttons don't send anything to the gateway. What it does is it creates a transaction record that can be associated with the opportunity. That way you have a running history if you take cash, if you take paper checks. Just to quickly run through the payment requests, if you click on that, you add in email address. You can add a contact if you want. We'll go ahead and add an amount. And if you want to add a note, you can add a note in there as well. We can go ahead and send that. And what I'm going to do is pop over to my email. We're going to go ahead and refresh this. There's the payment request right there. We're going to go ahead and click on the payment link. The one thing to keep in mind with this here is that you always have to have a mailing address or a billing address in there. If you're sending it to a random contact, a random email address, and it's not in there, they're going to go ahead and they're going to need to actually fill this out so that we send an address over to the gateway. So I'm just going to do this real quick, and it should pre-populate everything. 2555 Main Street. The email address here, if you want to send them a receipt, you want to make sure that's populated. That's where the receipt is going to go. And they can even update their billing address here and just save it. That saves it back to the record. And we're just going to go ahead and enter in a test credit card number, test security code, and an expiration date that's in the future. And we're going to go ahead and click charge. They're going to see a success up here, telling them that it was successful. Now keep in mind, the payment request here, this is something that I set up in advance, so if you guys actually are walking through it, it's not going to actually work exactly that way. So just to kind of give you that heads up, I'm going to jump back to the record here, and what I do want to show you under payment request, it's going to show you that it was created. But if we refresh that, it's going to show that it was paid. Payment request takes about maybe 45 minutes on the back end to set up, so I did that all in advance, just to give you guys the demo here. I'm going to run through the payment console real quick and then open it up for a little bit of questions here. So payment console, you'll fill in the information for the customer. And we're going to go ahead and enter the information here. And you can customize this also, which I'll get into in the next session. Here you're going to notice that you have the option for one-time recurring payments. You can set the amount for the initial payment, the one-time payment, or if you do recurring, you can set up the initial payment and the recurring billing amount. What you're going to also notice is it just shows you the credit card, even though we chose ACH. We're going to get into that in the next session also on how to actually activate the ACH electronic check. There's a next step in the settings that you have to enable it. And then we're going to go ahead and enter in the credit card information here again. When we click next, it's going to ask us for a recurring schedule. How frequent do you want it to run? Do you want it to process on a monthly basis, a weekly basis, annual basis? And then when do you want that to start billing? Generally, if you're doing an initial payment, it's going to charge the payment now, so you want to make sure that you set the recurring schedule to be a month out. And if you want it on a fixed day of the month, you can set that as well. And then you also have the stop rule. So if you do a certain number of transactions, you can do maybe a count of 5, and it'll set up 5 recurring payments to happen. It's going to then show you the different schedule there. So if we did 5 payments, it's going to show you exactly when those payments are going to be processed. And then you could just click the one-time charge and start recurring billing, and it's pretty much as easy as that. There's some things that are required for the gateway to actually process that payment. You're going to need, of course, the credit card number and expiration date. It's going to require the billing address, which is the name and address, and then your payment type, whether it's a credit card or it's electronic check. CVV, CCV, CSC, called so many different things. It's basically the verification code on the back of the card. That can be controlled whether it's required or not by your settings in your gateway. All right, I think I'm good for this session. Awesome, guys. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you for watching our video. And while you're here, please subscribe to our channel. Click that notification bell for immediate updates. And if you'd like to talk payments, please get in touch. We're always here to help.